because you're mostly young. This is the core. This is the nucleus. This is Julio and Kelnick and the young pitchers. And this is mostly Cal Raleigh. These are the young guys, J.P. Crawford. This is your nucleus. This is who you've built around. And I'm not sure what you do at that point. If that group starts to not trust each other and themselves. Can you get it back? Yes, you can. And they're going to have to. That's why, just sitting here and saying, well, all right, this season's lost. Oh, well, let's move on and play for next year. Not going to work for this group. There's too many young players who are part of your core and your nucleus. And so Scott's got a big challenge ahead of him. Jerry and Justin have big challenges ahead of them because right now these players are on the verge of walking themselves right out of this season. And that's a tough spot to be in.
Oh, yeah, it was tough. It was a tough one. And let me put at least one silver lining and one positive on this. As I kind of just sat on this weekend and prepared for today and thought about it, the silver lining is this weekend showed you what you are and what you're not. I mean, this was as definitive and as clear. And you're not this bad. I mean, you're not 30-9. You're not this bad, but you are clearly right now, this team, not in a place to compete for a World Series, not in a place to compete right now, frankly, for the American League West. And with the American League, as currently constructed, I don't think you're in place to compete even for a wild card right now. And
well, certainly the way they're playing right now
is the way they're playing right now. I mean,
right now they're not even competing for. They're like the A's. I mean, they look terrible.
That's right. So I mean that if you go in and you're like, okay, right, this is what. It's funny. You'll hear this, Salk, as you get older through these youth sports, and as your kids do compete in them, you'll hear like, you know what, we really do want to face good competition. We don't want to just blow people out. Right? You'll hear parents say that, like, no, really, it's good. It's good when we compete against the best. And then when you get your teeth knocked in, you're like, oh, maybe can we just go back and play that local tournament against the junior high teams? Like, that was a lot more fun to win than it was to play against the very best and to measure yourself and to see actually where you're at. Right, where you are, where you just stack right now. You've played the Rangers 6 times. They've beaten you 5. Mm-hmm. They beat you in your place without Corey Seager and a few of their other pieces. I mean, they have beaten you 5 of 6, and this weekend in their building wasn't competitive. So when Justin and Jerry and those guys, and I don't know if ownership, John sits in those meetings today on an off day, they happen. They got 2 of them this week. It just so happens you have 2 off days this week to pull out those legal pads and say, men, where are we really at? We went into this thinking we were World Series contenders with this roster, and right now we're not. So what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to even say this, but this is just where you're at. Do you start to talk about selling? Do you start to talk about actually moving some pieces this season with some of the injuries to Robbie and Marco and some of the situation going on and saying, you know what, maybe it's time to replenish a little bit rather than a time to go and buy and spend any other assets? I don't know, but everything has to be on that legal pad and everything has to be on the table because that was a pretty heavy piece of humble pie.
You got 2 months or 2 months before you need to answer that question, right? I mean, so the play over the course of the next 2 months is going to determine the answer to that. I don't hate the idea. I mean, if you do end up continuing to play like this and you get, into mid to late July and somebody sees value in a rental for Teoscar Hernandez or whatever the case may be, they may go in that direction.
Yep.
The problem you run into is, I don't know that they have anybody who's going to bring back anything of significance in a trade market. Are they just, in terms of veteran players near the end of their deal? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, Suarez or Teoscar. I don't know that they have a lot of that.
Yep.
But more importantly, and I was just sort of talking about this, the guys who are the nucleus of this team are going to be here for a while. So the way you handle them, right, and the way you handle the rest of the season, I think is going to say something to them about what you're looking for next year and the year beyond as well.
Yep. And I'll tell you this. I mean, I loved, and maybe this is just the football guy in me, but I loved Cal Raleigh's expression.
Yeah.
I loved him not holding back. I loved him finally kind of just calling out and expressing and emoting in a way that we've not really heard yet, right? We've heard a lot of, well, we're good, and players don't think that way, and players don't worry about that way, and they can't approach it that way. Well, Cal Raleigh approached it like, I don't know, every once in a while I certainly appreciate, and that is, we were embarrassed.
Yeah, and they were. I mean, and Scott said the same thing, and they were embarrassed. It was embarrassing to watch. I'm just going to disagree with you a little bit on the whole. Like, I don't think they're as bad as they've been. I think this roster is still perfectly capable of competing. And at 5.5 games out in the wild card, I'm not going to say today that they're toast, because we saw what happened last year when people all declared that a month from now.
That's right.
But you're getting real close.
Yeah, and
you're getting real close to walking yourself out of that possibility.
It is.